In the second part of tonight's class, we said, so when are you supposed to do this? When is a good time to get into this very harsh space? And we got some excellent answers from people. I hope you'll enjoy. And if you do, and it works for you, please subscribe so you can get these videos directly. And please share with people that you think would also benefit from the words of the Alter Rebbe. So we're going to move on, but I think it's good to try to, in yourself, sort of, maybe when you're in a situation, sort of like pull out that label box. Because if it's a stuck sadness, it's really dangerous. I mean, there's mariras we don't love either. But if it's sadness, I was saying it's highly dangerous, and get out of it. And if it's mariras, we don't love it either, and we also want you to get out of it. But we're not as it's not as dangerous a space. But it's also not the best space. But sometimes it's needed, as the Rebbe is going to go on and say. But sometimes you need the space. We don't love it. It doesn't feel very fun. But sometimes you need the judgments in a godly sense. This is a godly space, but it's a sort of harsher, more severe, judgmental, not meaning we're judging other people, more like self-judgmental, godly space. Well, why would we need it? Well, very similar to what we said last week, kedei lahamtik hadinim, to sweeten the judgments. Shehem bechinas nefesh habahamis v'yitzahara. What I mean, the judgments, there's the non-godly, evil energy, harsh forces inside of me, my animal soul, my evil inclination. When they, God forbid, are ruling man, when they are trying to control us, when they're trying to get a grip on us, when they're trying to pull us down. I'm very familiar with that process. I imagine other people might also be. We need to crush them. It's a force. It's an energy. It's a judgment, meaning it's a harsh energy. It's not a soft, sweet, kind, warm energy. It's a harsh energy that's pulling at us, and it's evil. So we need to pull out of our arsenal a similar but godly space. Why? Ki ein hadinim nimtakin ela b'sharshan. Because the judgments are only sweetened by their own source energy. Now remember, last week we discussed a similar but different concept, slightly different but very similar, when we spoke about the whole concept of being in the space of sadness. And we're like, or not us, because we didn't go through the process, but as if we went through the process, we're like, Alter Rebbe, why'd you do this to me? Okay, I was sick, but why'd you mess me up now with another illness? That was our initial complaint, so to speak. We have a taina, we have a complaint. Alter Rebbe, I'm so loyal. I listened to you. What'd you mess me over for? And the Alter Rebbe said, I know, but I had no choice. Because you have to kill it from it itself. Remember, we spoke about the axe that works to chop the forest if the handle is from the forest. We spoke about the killer killing the killer snake. So to destroy evil, you need to use a form of evil. So that's why, to remove the evil of that stone-like heart, you needed to do something very crushing, like this sadness style evil. So that was last week. And that was evil versus evil. Absolute evil, chiseled away by the best of klipas noiga evil. It was a much better situation, but it still was evil. Evil against evil, klipas noiga against klipas meis, the axe felling the forest, the killer killing the snake. So we're saying something very similar here, but we've moved up a million miles. Because we're not talking about that klipas noiga evil that one can elevate, destroying the evil that's evil. We're talking about godliness versus evil. And the evil we're talking about is our own evil, my evil. I have evil inside of me. I have the absolute evil of my evil inclination. I have the can be utilized for God, evil of my animal soul. But both of them can really take on a lot of force and can really pull at me. They can make me depressed. They can make me sad. They can make me upset. They can make me nervous. They could put me in a big pity party. They can make me jealous. They can do a lot of things to mess me up. How do I combat them? So the Rebbe is saying, Ein hadinim nimtaken ella besharshan, which means this is a state of judgment, of harshness. And we sweeten that judgment by judgment. We can only sweeten it by itself. But here, the itself doesn't mean another form of evil. It means a godly version of the story. So the non-godly version of my personal story is my evil inclination animal soul. Now, your evil inclination animal soul might do different things to you than mine do to me, but we all probably are familiar with the concept of being pulled into spaces we don't want to be and finding ourselves in spaces we don't want to be and wondering why we're here one more time. So we sort of are familiar with it, though again, every one of us has a different color and flavor and shade, but we know what we're talking about. So to remove that hold on us, the Rebbe is saying, you got to use something similar, but in the side of holiness. And that similar, because it's gvura, strength, judgment, but not holy. Holy is this force called Mariros. It's a gvura, just like that gvura, harshness, judgment, energy of my animal soul evil inclination, but it's a holy one. So I can sweeten, transform, flip over the animal soul evil inclination judgments on me, pulling me down, attacking me, always the same ways, because we all have our points of weakness and they're very clear, very well known. We're probably the biggest expert on ourselves, so we know them quite well. And when I'm in this space of Mariros, I can fight fire with fire. I can say all this judgment energy, I'm switching it over to godliness. How do I switch over to godliness? By deciding I'm going to make a change. By saying, I've been in this route way too many times. The roads are way too fast. They're way too well paved. They're way too smooth because I've done this way too many times and I'm ready to change. I don't want to do this anymore. And so that Mariros energy is that energy of change, that energy of it doesn't have to be this way, even though I've been doing this for 50 years. It doesn't have to be this way, and I'm going to change. And I'm going to change by stop thinking about myself so much and think about God. Stop thinking about what I did and what he did and what she did and thinking about the future. Stop feeling stuck and know that I'm not stuck. I can change. And the fact that I've lived this way so many years doesn't mean I can't be a different person starting today. And that is sweetening the judgments in their source. Because the ultimate source of everything is godliness. So even our animal soul, our evil inclination, it's an angel. It's sourced in godliness. So let me get to the godly source, the gvura, judgment of godliness, and use that to transform them. So when do you think will be the best time to do this? To use this godly judgment to combat the negative one. You wouldn't want to do it at the wrong time because you're using judgment, holy judgment, but judgment. So you want to be careful. So any ideas when you would think you should try to do what the Rebbe is suggesting here?
I'm not sure I'm getting what he's suggesting.
What the Alter Rebbe is suggesting is, well, it's not a suggestion. What the Alter Rebbe is saying is the way we combat the negativity inside of us is by using a similar energy, but in a holy space, not in an evil space. Meaning in our own self, we have our animal soul, we have our evil inclination. So that's versions of the word evil, of a blockage. What does evil mean? A blockage to God. So the evil inclination is completely obstructed. It's a prime example of what we call klipas tmeos, where I cannot access that godliness. Now, obviously, the evil inclination is an angel, is a godly being, but I can't access the godliness at all. That's what we mean by complete evil. Everything's godly, but I can't use it at all. So it's complete blockage of the godliness. And my animal soul is like that, what we explained last week, that intermediate level where there's a blockage, there's an obstruction, but I can get past it and I can actually utilize the energy. That's my animal soul. But most of the time, my animal soul is under the grip of my evil inclination. So they're sort of good partners to mess me over. So the alternative is saying, how do you get past this? How do you turn around negative energies? So he's saying we turn them around by using their source energy in a good way. So the energy of the evil, of my evil inclination, of my animal soul, is Gevura. Gevura means judgment, a harshness. Now, it's Gevura in a non-holy way. Neither of them are coming from a place of holiness. So let me take that same Gevura, that same harshness, that same judgment, but a harshness and judgment that's godly. So it's like, here's the evil version, here's the godly version of a very similar story, of the same energy. So if I can utilize it in the godly way, I pull away, I diffuse its negative energies. That's what the Rebbe is saying. I'm trying to think of a good parable for that. What I'm thinking off the top of my head, so it's probably a bad one, is like if someone had, I mean, it's not really a great parable, but sort of, if someone had a talent, a passion, something that they were doing, but in an unholy way, in a way that was not good, that was wrong. A good idea would be take that same talent, but use it in a good way. We're not saying crush the talent. Use the talent, but transform it. So instead of it putting you in bad places, you use it for good places. So that's not a perfect metaphor for the concept, but it's sort of the idea. This is just more overarching. Instead of having the whole energy of the evil, now we're not talking about a talent, a gift. We're talking about the thing itself, evil inclination, animal soul itself. It. So to transform it, use that energy, use that space for mariris. Mariris meaning for like self-reflection, self-contemplation, to recognize you need to change and to commit to change. That's what the Rebbe is saying here. That you like have to have this like almost like introspection, deep, not fun, not pleasant, strong, and make strong commitments to change, to be a different person. Be honest with yourself. That's often hard for me, right? Being honest with myself and saying, no, I'm not so, whatever. I've got things that have to shift, and then say, okay, don't blame others. Don't even just blame yourself. Change. Don't fetch. Change. Don't think you're stuck. Change. So that's like a sort of harsh space to be in, like a real firmness with yourself. So we're taking that same firmness, instead of getting pulled down into the evils, we're using it to go up and closer to God. That's the idea. So what I'm asking is, when do you think you should do this? When do you think the Rebbe want you to do this?
Cyril, could you use it when you're in the middle of whatever, an angry thought, of being hard on yourself, thinking something about someone else, and you're sort of a soft person, might be, but taking two hands and literally pushing out that thought and putting something in.
That would be a perfect example. That would be a great example, especially adding the details Miriam said, especially if you're a soft person. So if you're a soft person, if you're normally a kind, nice, sweet, loving everyone, including hopefully yourself person, this whole work is like, what? This is really, I don't want to ever go into this harsh space. Why would I do that? But if you're there anyway doing something wrong, Miriam's saying, with this not really typical to you energy, that's a great time to turn it around. That is a great time to turn it around. When you're in that space anyway, is exactly the moment when you want to say, let me flip this. Now, of course, you could say that's not the time you're going to be thinking about it, because if you're angry and judgmental and sort of like riled up, why am I going to be thinking about God and all this great stuff? So you do need a certain like overarching awareness as you watch yourself slip. You see that slippery slope happening, to say, stop, turn it over. But it's much easier to do it then than when you're just in this regular, like, why mess up a happy mood? If you're in a good space and a happy space and a positive space and a loving space, like, why would you go here? So you wouldn't. So what Miriam's saying is actually an excellent idea.